Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to have a conference. This is our activity or extracurricular activity for the practicum and seminar, which is a requirement for this course. My name is Carlos Mayorga. I'm the professor at this course, and today we have an special guest, which is the presenter, Professor Oscar Conejo Chacón. He's going to be sharing an interesting um, conversation or conference regarding a very nice topic that I'm going to share in a few minutes with him. I want to welcome all the students that we have, not only from the seminar, but also from other courses, especially from Professor Conejo's courses. So if you're ready, we may start. I just want to know if Professor Oscar Conejo is ready, so we may start whenever he wants. Don Oscar, are you
All
ready?
right. Sure. Good evening, everyone, and
Okay.
thanks, Carlitos, for the invitation. I'm pretty glad to be here with all of you guys, and hope you're doing well. First and foremost. So, yeah, I'm ready whenever you want.
So thanks for your patience for all the guys who have been waiting in this class. And now we're ready. So please pay attention, guys, and enjoy because as I know, we have one of the best teachers that we have at the university, Latina in Guápiles, and enjoy this presentation, please. So welcome, Mr. Oscar Conejo Chacón. Go ahead, Oscar.
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for the introduction, and guys, again, thanks for being here and to be patient, as our professor said, and definitely, just let me share right here this thing. Uh, um. Yeah, right here. So definitely, ladies and gentlemen, I know most of the people in this room today, and I know that this is going to be a great topic for you, and I hope you find it useful for your career because this is like a compilation of experiences. And as a disclaimer, I got to say that what I'm about to present is just a compilation of my ideas, and obviously authors are involved right here, but mostly it's from my experience and 14 years of experience. I think that we're able to understand more about the process. So I'll be using this as a whiteboard as well. Okay, so don't freak out if you see that I'm scratching and putting scribbles on the board. And just to get started, I just wanted to talk about this for two reasons. Number one, as you can see, is recursive nature in grammar and writing. And the two reasons are, certain, I must say, problems or hindrances that that we've had through the process. So what I'm going to do first is just to come up with a story, kind of a timeline in which most of my students have been through, and I've been through as well. So basically, and the second reason is to find solutions as as a community, as a student community, so that we can share experiences and we can share solutions in your experience actually. So the topic is the recursive nature in grammar and writing, which is embedded in the EFL teaching and learning process. And by understanding that it's not only teaching but also learning, we are involving ourselves as teachers, but also involving our students, not only in high school but also in university. So this as a disclaimer again, most of the things that we discuss right here are for students, teachers, and even for for everyone who's involved in this language issue. So let me get started by talking about the implicit timeline that we have whenever we talk about grammar, and this is something I went through. All right, actually, I've been through 14 years ago, since 14 years ago, and as a prelude, I might talk about the timeline. Whenever you think about grammar, obviously there are many issues involved. Number one, for some people, is a headache. For some people, this implies a challenge. For some other people, this is just a university or high school requirement. But the thing is that whatever experience we've had, this is the proper timeline that we talk about. All right. So one of the most common phases, all right, is the grammar isolation phase, which, in my opinion, this is something that I just thought about. And the isolation phase refers to, think about your life in high school. Think about the type of English that the lessons that you went through in high school, and all the grammar that you received as a student. In most of the cases, that was isolated grammar. And I'm not saying this wrong, okay? I just want to go back to my disclaimer and say that I'm not judging here in this, for this conference. I'm not judging anyone's way or strategy. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to portray and convey notions of what the recursive process involves. All right, and when we find ourselves in the isolation phase, the problem here is that we take the chunks of grammar and we start teaching chunks. Whether you talk about the verb be and the tenses, and if we want to go beyond, and then you talk about passive structure and stuff, but those are chunks. If you think about the context of that, formulas, they're okay. Mm, Structure, that's okay, but that is isolated grammar. And it's one of the first phases we find ourselves, whether in high school and even university. Now, we need to make this type of division between what we get in high school and what we get in university, because it's impossible just to compare successfully what you receive in high school and what you receive in university. Because remember that at university level, you have a double task, which is learning things first and master the subject first, and then apply the subject and teach the subject. So it's basically there's more responsibility. But then the isolation phase is one of the first phases we go through. Then we might be talking about the rejection phase, and I know that many people have been through this phase. Actually, I was there, and it was hard for me to be out of that phase, which is after the isolation phase and finding no meaningful use for the grammar chunks that I received, and having all the periods and stuff, I went through this rejection phase in which you just don't want to know about grammar. You just reject everything that has to do with grammar, and you start thinking that there are other ways. Let's say there are certain way out, but the truth is that there is no like a magic stuff right here that can get you out of learning the language properly. Not because you're a teacher, all right? And as teachers we are supposed to master the language with a certain degree of accuracy. So what the thing is that after the isolation phase and when you come to the rejection phase, well, you start believing those ridiculous advertisements, and just sorry about that you can learn English in 4 months with no grammar, and you see people burning dictionaries and burning grammar books like live, and you start believing that. You think it's something that the way out because of frustration and everything, but years later you discover that it's not possible. I mean, it's not for you guys, and let's again separate what you are supposed to do as a teacher and what you're supposed to do as an English learner, and then put it together, because that's your responsibility, not only as an English learner but as an English teacher. And that's where there's a double task and double responsibility, and that's what we must embrace and understand. And then after the rejection phase, um, we jump to the war against grammar. Why is this a war? Because a lot of people come and start telling you that grammar is not really necessary, and you just need to make yourself understood, and that's it. If you're able to communicate, no matter the way you do it, that's okay. And it becomes the type of battle. In the high schools become a battle, and even at university, you kind of reject this idea. So you start hating syntax courses, you start hating syntax teachers, and you still hate me, I know. But that's part of the grammar war, that it's as a result of the isolation part and then the rejection part. But then what happens here in this stage or phase, the problem is all the mechanisms that you think you can activate, to get out of this task. And the problem is that you just delay in the inevitable truth, which is definitely necessary to come up and see the hindrances and the weaknesses that we have, because it's not about escaping, it's about approaching the weaknesses properly after this rejection phase. And when the war against grammar, in the middle of this phase, and we just find the other way around. I mean, the opposite. After all that stuff, and then you get convinced that grammar is necessary, and then you got just like to put your own endeavors and stuff. Then we come to the red card problem, and this is the way I call it, because the red card problem implies that now you are in a kind of defense mode. So you start correcting even the instructions for the recipe, and even you start correcting everything, everyone, everywhere, which is not wrong. I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just telling you again all the stages that a student can go through in terms of the recursiveness of or recursion of grammar and even writing. So during this red card problem, guys, the problem, because it's a problem, is that we start correcting, which is somehow you may say, but that's my responsibility. That's my job. And yes and no, because this type of correction sometimes, as I'm saying, is as a result of this defense. You're trying to, mm, your mind is in a state that you just correct because of the frustration that you lived before, and it's not a type of correction that implies feedback. It's just the mere act of that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's wrong, and you know what, I hate you because that's wrong, and that's a problem. However, it's one of the stages that we may go through. Okay. And we may stay during this phase for a while before understanding the reality of correcting, which it goes beyond than just saying right or wrong. And you see problems like these. You start thinking or justifying that it's not that you're grammar crazy. It's just that you don't get what other people are saying. But instead of providing feedback, it's just coming up with this idea. All right. Or if you put it in a funny state like this, cactus and cacti, and even cacti, as you can pronounce it like that. But it's one of the stages that we go through, and this is the red card, and we start correcting everything. And as I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with that. But when I see people like struggling in Facebook, or telling each other a couple things that are not necessary just because of something that trying to correct, and after that, now we are into another phase or another stage, which is supposedly, this looks, I know, kind of sarcastic, but it's kind of teaching grammar now with no judgment. There's no prejudice, no, okay, everything is beautiful, okay, you can do it like that, because I might not be, let's say, so harsh and or so rude. Just do it like that, beautiful. Oh my God, the best I've seen. And it's like, we bounce and we bounce into one phase or another, and now for this uh, judgment free zone, it's not the right balance. And again, it's what I've seen through 14 years of experience in students and teachers, and 10 from those 14 years is teaching at university level, and that's what we see. Then after talking about the phases that I have been able to see, is there any other phase or comment regarding this that someone would like to talk about? Just let me know.
Well, I can say that actually you are absolutely right. For some people, it is a nightmare. I can say that sometimes I feel that it is for me. Even when I try hard, I still believe that it's still been hard for me. So I don't know what to do. Sometimes it's like really frustrated. But at the same time, I think that when time passes, I will get a little bit more experience on it, and that's my, like what I think about. But it is a nightmare, and I know that it is for me, and I know it is for so many people too. But what we can do, all we can do, I think, is just try to get better with every time, and that's all we can do. I mean, there's no other way. We have to keep pushing ourselves with this thing and try to do our best.
Absolutely in agreement with you. It's as teachers, is one of the components that a teacher, maybe as you say, pushes through, and that's all right. Uh, I would say that understanding the process is first. The first and foremost is understanding the process, and then you can struggle with the process. But if we don't understand the process first, and then it becomes even harder to look for a way out. All right, to look for means. So we're just trying to look for the magical vehicle in order to surpass this hindrance, and sometimes it doesn't work like that. Like, understanding the process will be, in my opinion, first and foremost. So what? Uh-huh. Yeah, hello there. All right. So and then after just coming up with this short timeline of possible phases that we may go through in this journey, and somehow now it's time to understand that we may call this conference a recursive nature, but we must understand what recursion means first. And think about that recursive nature because it's something that happens over and over again. In the case of grammar, we have repetition of rules and patterns that will be assembled in order to form meaning, and that's right. But take this as understanding language from a different perspective and not from the same perspective that as want. So recursion, okay, right here. Recursion is those elements, okay, by operation, rules or formulas involving a might be finite number of steps, or sometimes is not something that you can count. Like there are certain components in grammar in which you create endless, number of sentences or number of combinations it's impossible just to come up with an end. But in basic terms, recursion means this cycle, and you probably say, what isn't not a circle, but in grammar, it's not exactly a circle because of stages that we may be at. All right, so that's why it's not a circle, but kind of a square. Um, there are certain stages in grammar that are longer than others, and that's why we really don't picture this as round because of that nature. But the recursive nature stays there, and by understanding how the recursion works, probably we may, I don't know, make sense, kind of like looking for ways out to the problems that we experience. Now, one of the main theories, now talking about theories, and sorry about this if it becomes too theoretical, but it's inevitable to talk about this recursive process if we don't talk about generative grammar. Um, when we understand that generative grammar is like the core, talking about the core of what we do every single time that we try to teach verb tenses, and we try to teach whatever topic in grammar that you just come and isolatedly teach and with no context is, in the case of generative grammar, it comes from generating something, right? It comes from creating meaning upon using the language. But we need to analyze sentences you know, from a different perspective and understanding that sentences form competence. All right. So this is pretty much what we understand as that we have a form, but we also have a function. All right. And I would say that one of the main problems is when we stay here in form, but we never talk about function. And that this is mostly one of the main reasons why isolation appears, because we stay in the form and the form and the form, and God knows what happens with function. And staying there is when isolation becomes really harsh, and students suffer that weakness because we are not into, we're just talking about forms, and grammar starts looking like mathematics because lots of formulas, and they talk about interrogative sentences and negative sentences, and sometimes they say positive, which I prefer not to call positive because positive looks more like a battery with positive and negative, switches. So I prefer affirmative. But anyway, if you stay too focused on form, you're isolating the other components. Like in this case, we need to understand that sentences also provide competence. I'm just verbalizing some of Chomsky's ideas in this theory. Um, so right here we have one of the most famous phrases from Chomsky, and he just wants to, or he wanted to let us know that sometimes something that we don't pay attention that much, which is, as he says, is a striking aspect of linguistic competence, is that we may call the creativity of language, that is, our ability to produce new sentences and sentences that are immediately understood by other people, by other speakers, regardless if they bear or not physical resemblance to sentences which are familiar. So if we try to summarize this, is the ability that we have to read a sentence, okay, to read a determined structure that we have never seen before, but we're able to understand it, okay? No matter if it's familiar or not, but we're able to understand it, mostly in a native aspect. And the creativity comes in creating, as I said a couple minutes ago, an endless number of combinations that no matter what, no matter if you're familiar with, you're able to understand. And sometimes, depending upon your performance and your ability, sometimes you're able to coin. We're able to coin certain structures that were never seen before. But I don't know if this looks like mm, a kind of weirdo phenomenon, but it happens at certain times. Um, and that's a theory of creativity in here. Then we come to the point that sentences definitely, we have creativity, all right, and then we have recursion. This is in most of the cases the hardest part for speakers, for people who work with the language, and also levels of analysis. This is mostly what we cover, either the recursion or levels of analysis. This is what we cover in syntax 3 and 4 in most of the cases. All right. If there's any comment that you would like to add, just let me know. All right. Um, mhm. So in the case of levels of analysis, just to put certain points and terms clear, we understand that a sentence, it's usually independent. It's just a sentence, uh, because it's governed by a noun phrase. If you remember, phrases is an old topic, and a verb phrase, right? Sometimes we kind of interchange this by saying that a sentence contains a subject and a verb, and that's right. But if you want to go a little bit more technical, it's actually a noun phrase and a verb phrase is what a sentence is usually composed of, not composed by, because it's a different meaning. But a phrase sometimes relates only to certain chunks of a sentence, if you want to call them like that. which is in the case of the car, it's just a noun phrase, but at the same time, it can just work as a noun. And then, for example, in the case of restore, this is a verb phrase that can perfectly work as a verb itself. And in the club, for example, we can talk about this as a prepositional uh, phrase, not only because it contains a preposition, but also because a prepositional phrase is composed of a noun phrase right here. And by understanding this, ladies and gentlemen, it's not that we just want to go that technical with no reason. No, is that we just want to probably analyze the structure of the language in a different manner, in a different way, so that we can actually transmit that message to our students mm, better. I would say better, and try to find more meaningfulness in conveying meaning to the language whenever you teach. Like, for example, I know that we are tempted to teach verb be and other topics in high school because somehow that's the just kind of easy and practical and stuff. And whenever it comes to teaching writing, and you say no, es que solo los pongo a leer y ya, or whenever it comes to teaching speaking, ay, les digo que diga un par de palabras. And then if you find something more practical as you go, you just choose that upon the rest. However, um, without understanding the process, it's hard to carry out that process properly. And then we understand that a clause is looks like a sentence because it contains a subject and a verb. Yeah, right. But a clause is embedded in a sentence. So if you want to call all this a sentence, all right, we must understand that we have right here a clause and we have um, another clause right here. Okay. And this is what we call it in syntax terms. She called the man whose shirt was green an adjective clause, all right, because it's working as an adjective, the whole clause, all right. The man, which man? The one whose shirt is green. So this is basically working as an adjective. This is one of the old topics we cover in syntax 4 is an adjective clause. But then that's the difference between a sentence, a phrase, and a clause. And by understanding this, we may stop this old practice of telling our students that this is wrong, and this is wrong, but not telling them why. Not telling them that if they say, for example, only in the club, that's wrong. No, it's not wrong. It's not a sentence, but it's not wrong. It's just a phrase. And you can combine, okay, noun phrases and verb phrases and prepositional phrases in the right order in order to create meaning. Okay? The problem is that it's not one, two, three, but probably it was three, two, one. So teach your students to put them in the right order, but not just telling them that is wrong and wrong and wrong, especially because of psychological issues the same way. Then, after the levels of analysis, now we can talk about the recursion, like naked recursion. That's what we call it. We also call it iteration or iteration, which is uh, sometimes people call this syntactical trees or diagrams, and that's fine. The thing is not the name you give it, but the thing is how we applied it, how you apply this in order to understand the process of analyzing sentence structure. This is a very nice or particular pattern that we can follow in order to understand the nature of sentences. For example, that a sentence, it's usually formed or composed of a noun phrase and a verb phrase. You're probably looking at this tree and why is it upside down? Is because whenever we analyze, we try to apply recursion, your analysis will end up looking like a tree but upside down. And that's why we call it like that. But the thing is that now we understand that a sentence, it's usually formed or composed of a noun phrase and a verb phrase. But then, what about if we understand that a noun phrase, a single noun phrase, can be composed of the determiner and an adjective or adjective phrase, a single noun. So if you say, for example, whiteboard, if you say pen or pencil, it's a noun phrase. Okay, but what about if the noun phrase looks longer? No problem, don't freak out. It's normal. It's what a noun phrase may look like. In the case now, a noun phrase can also be composed of a prepositional phrase. If you don't understand any of the acronyms after I come up with the explanation, just let me know because it's really important. I'll be also giving a Carlitos a book later on so that he can give it to you for you to read if you're interested. It's one of the many books I've read about this, and it has definitely helped me a lot, but a lot. Then we understand that a verb phrase is composed of an auxiliary in most of the cases. It's not a 100% rule, but it could be a verb, a single verb. A noun phrase can be part of a single verb phrase, as well as the prepositional phrase and the adverbial phrase that sometimes is accompanied by intensifiers. Like, for example, the word very is not just an adverb, but we call it an intensifier as well. And finally, a prepositional phrase could be uh, composed of a preposition and also a noun phrase. So may you go back to the structure of a noun phrase, and yes, a prepositional phrase may look like a preposition plus all of the components that we have in the noun phrase. Just to exemplify a little bit more, we have a sentence like this. Dave gave the boy outside a coat. And and if we follow the rules right here, we understand that Dave is not only a noun, but it also works as a noun phrase. All right, and that gave is not only a verb, but it is also part of the verb phrase along with the rest of the components. So, what is the right form of using this or applying this? Is number one is just labeling the parts into single lexical categories, or we call it also parts of speech, and that's all right. I mean, I just prefer to call it lexical categories. And then you start forming your tree, okay, until we get to the ultimate goal, if it's possible. All right, if it is possible, we will get to the ultimate goal, which is uh, analyzing a sentence. But if we only have this information, the boy outside, I mean, no problem. This is just a noun phrase. It's not that it's wrong. It's just that it's a noun phrase. You can connect this noun phrase to an endless number of patterns in order to create meaning. But the fact that we tell our students that this is wrong because es que le falta más, es que le falta algo, es que le falta el complemento. And what the hell is a compliment? All right, because that's the common misunderstanding, and you should hate that. Then let's apply recursion right here, just like provide more examples. Now that we understand that we have this useful combination, we can start asking, okay, Carlos is what? Yeah, it's a noun. Right. What happens if we start building knowledge or building meaning in grammar? Then we have did not throw. All right. So we can start labeling these parts, and we say that is an auxiliary, obviously negative, and this is a verb. So we keep on provided meaning like that, and obviously we understand that the combination of these is what? Because it contains the elements. You see, it probably doesn't contain the rest, but it contains the ones we have right here. So we can say that this is a verb phrase, and that's pretty okay. And then we continue the remaining cans. And remember that we come from Carlos did not throw the remaining cans. So we start labeling again, and we say that this is a determiner. Sorry about that. And remaining obviously is an adjective or adjective phrase, what you want to call it, and the cans, which are noun. And now we take a look at the structure right here and say, okay, a noun phrase contains determiner. Yeah, we have it. And adjective and prepositional phrase and noun. And yeah, we have it. So we can call the structure right here a noun phrase. Just to make it clear right here. And then we continue into the waste basket. So Carlos did not throw the remaining cans into the waste basket. So basically, if we label all of them again, we know that this is a preposition, and again we have a determiner, and then we have a noun, right? And guess what? We have the prepositional phrase here, preposition noun phrase. And what about if we connect? We have right here the noun phrase, okay? And it says that it contains a determiner and a noun. What about if we connect this as a noun phrase? But then we can make this connection now as a prepositional phrase, and everything is okay. Finally, we have the complete sentence. Carlos did not throw the remaining cans into the waste basket. And we do exactly the same because we're looking to break down structure into a sentence or phrase. That's it, guys. That's it. We're looking for this might be your ultimate goal, but what about if what you only have is a noun phrase? What about if you only have a verb phrase or prepositional phrase? I mean, don't freak out. Language is okay. What is not okay is telling our students that they are wrong. Okay, just because
Sure.
something doesn't look the way you want them to look. Uh huh.
Sorry. First, good afternoon. Sorry, good evening. In this part, for example, if instead of the remaining cans, instead of that part, could be something like the red carpet. It is also in the noun phrase, isn't it?
Absolutely right, because we're following the same structure. Contains adjective and noun. Remaining cans, adjective, noun. Red carpet, and adjective, noun. Absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So basically, we do the same right here, just to end up with this, and then we have a auxiliary right here, and then we have the verb, and then the determiner, and the adjectives right here, and nouns and preposition. We have another determiner right here. And now, but then you need to connect. You have like the first um, surface, I would say, surface of everything, but then you can connect. How do we connect this? Hmm? Can someone tell me how can we make connection until the ultimate goal, which is the sentence? Anyone who wants to participate? All right. Doesn't really look like someone. Well, let's get to the prepositional phrase number one, which is we have a prepositioning noun phrase. Okay, so we have the noun phrase here, as you remember, but then we can come right here for a prepositional phrase, and then we have for a verb phrase we can have auxiliary and the rest, which is pretty cool. But first, we have the remaining cans. So we have a noun phrase here because it contains a terminating an adjective and everything. So right here, we have what? A noun phrase. However, a verb phrase can actually cover the noun phrase, like embrace everything. So we can perfectly do this and have the noun phrase. And actually, this can be connected here. And now, if you think about the verb phrase, which can also hug, if you want to call them hug, if you want to call them embrace or embed, also the prepositional phrase, it's perfectly useful. So basically, what we do is, sorry, this is verb phrase. This one also covers the prepositional phrase. And finally, we get to the ultimate goal, which is noun phrase, verb phrase, and we get to the sentence only by following the rules we have right here, guys. And if you want to follow this formula or particular pattern the way you want, it's okay. The fact that we learn to form grammar trees or grammar diagrams is not telling you anything else than you're able to break down structure, but it will not give you any special strategy to understand more than the process, is what we're trying to understand. Then let's get to the notion of grammatical and ungrammatical sentence. What do you think about this sentence? Anyone who wants to refer to colorless green ideas sleep furiously.
I think that it's grammatically correct.
Excuse me, is what?
Grammatic correctly.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely, I agree with you. The notion of having sentences that are incorrect or correct, we prefer to use terms like grammatical or ungrammatical. So the sentence right here, if you think about the components, yeah, it contains, if it is a sentence, it should be governed by the parts that we previously studied, all right? And yes, it's pretty okay. It contains everything, right? Colorless in this case is an adjective, all right? And green is another adjective, no problem. Ideas is a noun. Sleep, firstly, and right here. And then, and we get to the ultimate sentence. Now, it's a sentence, and you say, okay, profe, pero es que no me suena. And how to explain the phenomenon? So the phenomenon is that is is grammatical. It's grammatical. So it means that it follows the rules of structure, but is what? Is semantically questionable. It's semantically questionable because the type of language and context that we use is the one that we can find for fairy tales and literature and something that it's more abstract. And even that type of context plays a major role, guys, in decoding language and structure. So we can say that it's grammatical. And there is another term that Chomsky refers a lot, which is when a sentence is sensical or nonsensical. So the sentence is grammatical. Let us forget about correct or incorrect because sometimes those terms are pretty subjective. But the thing is that we can say that this sentence is grammatical but semantically questionable and also nonsensical. What about the next sentence that we have? What about if we talk about the sentence that we have right here? Is there anything weird that you notice?
And the
Yeah,
baby is
the
a
verb.
noun. Sleep, the
I
verb.
should say slips.
Peacefully, adverb. Okay, no.
Okay, perfect. Someone just points out a very important thing right here.
Yeah, the S is
Slips.
the third person.
Exactly. So how do we call that? How do we call that phenomenon of adding the s or es? How do we call that? Like from a book definition. How do we call it? Jesus. Jesus Christ. S. Sorry.
Looks
How do
better
we
now.
call that? Ujú. Es decir, ¿cómo le llamamos a eso? Que le agregamos la S, ¿no? From a book perspective, how do we call that?
Verb tense.
It's part of verb tense, and it's when we talk about conjugations and rules, like in this case, you're talking about a conjugation of a verb, which is whatever first, second, third person, plural or singular. Now we are breaking something, right? We are
Mm-hmm.
breaking
Assumption,
principles,
rules.
rules. We're
Teacher,
breaking rules. Hello?
it, it's a conjugation, I think.
It's a conjugation. You're right. Absolutely right.
I think
Absolutely.
that is subject and verb agreement.
Definitely subject and verb agreement. You're very right. Thank you for that. And now, what is the verdict? Is the sentence grammatical or ungrammatical?
Ungrammatical.
Grammatical.
Is
Ungrammatical.
definitely is likely. Huh? I'm gonna say something. Yeah, you're pretty right. It's ungrammatical. However, think about the
Mm,
other terms,
ma-
sensical or
Okay, just to
nonsensical.
Maybe
sorry, just to have it clear. So if
Mhm.
it is grammatical, it means that it's grammatical correct. Okay, I mean, if it is ungrammatical, it means that it has or contains a mistake inside, right?
Correct. Without
Okay.
using words like correct or incorrect. Yeah, it's pretty much like the way you portray. Yes, it's exactly like that. Now, let's think about this and say that colorless green ideas and sleep forestly is grammatical, but it's kind of
grammatic.
nonsensical. All right. The baby sleep or sleeps peacefully is ungrammatical, but it looks more
Sensical, but
sensical.
what sensical means exactly? I don't have it
Okay,
clear yet.
let's talk about the terms. And it was kind of a controversy like back in time when Chomsky talks about in his one of the books I actually recently reread. He talks about sensical and nonsensical as terms that if you look for the word nonsensical, it's pretty much that you find it like right away. But the word sensical is questionable. However, what we pretend is that nonsensical is that it doesn't make sense, and sensical it makes sense. And that is the notion of analyzing sentences from a different perspective more than correct or incorrect. It's more grammatical or ungrammatical. However, the fact that it's grammatical doesn't really mean that it's sensical. And the fact that it's ungrammatical it's not chained to the fact that it might be nonsensical. Actually, it can work interchangeably. If you take a look at this as something that can it's not 100% ruled, then when it is grammatical it's sensical, no, and vice versa.
Right.
um and this is mostly what I need to say about the recursive part in grammar before we jump into the writing part. I don't know if there's any uh, comment or any experience that you would like to talk about in terms of grammar before I jump to the last part, which is the recursive or the recursive nature of the writing part.
Nope, everything is clear.
All right, just going back to the disclaimer again, guys. It's just I'm just providing some of the uh, insights that I can take upon my experience, but it's not something that you may take as linguistic advice. You know. Now, after we have gone through all this stuff in terms of grammar, and then we go to the writing part, and right here the problem is actually this. You may probably say, yeah, this is the most common recursive process that we understand and then we receive at university, high school, whatever. But I may say that this is a problem, guys. And yeah, I know that most of you may be telling yourselves that, so what? So then what's the key? This is the problem. The recursive nature of applying the recursive nature. Yeah, I know it's not that clear. But let's see. Whenever you get to a writing course and then you're asked to come up with the pre-writing phase and the drafting phase and you revise and go and edit it and then publish your work, it's okay, guys, but you cannot or we cannot apply this recursive process until we understand the basis of the recursive process. Let me put it this clear in this clear way. What is the effectiveness of applying the recursive process? And I just want to come up with Larry uh, McInerney's words. Is one of the professors at Columbia University, and is to me one of the best, let's say, proponents in this area. He states that when this process or this writing process is only recursive, it becomes useless. And what is the reason? The reason is that more than this, more than applying the recursive process, because the program tells you that you must apply the recursive process because the book contains the recursive process. Before applying that issue, writing must be valuable. Here's a problem, okay? And yes, I'm telling you this from my experience. So you probably say, how come you did that? Yeah, I've done it. Yeah, mistake, error, I've done it. Okay, so it's important just to be honest about this. So we have the reader, the text, and we have the world. Who are the readers? You teachers. Oh, we teachers. Well, I'm about to quit teaching. Just want to become a lawyer. But yeah, we are readers, professors, and we have the text. Your students' compositions and paragraphs and text and whatever you want to call it. And then we have the world. What does that mean? If you don't see your students' writing or text valuable, okay, then the type of world that you are expecting from them will never be the correct one, will never be the suitable one. So a student brings the text to you, and you start what? Proofreading and proofreading and correcting and correcting. Now, my question is, do we really pay attention to the quality of the ideas before structure? I mean, can we really debate and sit down with a student, and why do you really consider that this happens like the way you portrayed it in your writing? In most of the cases, no, it's just X X X malo malo malo, a grammar mistake, and but the essence of the text, how valuable the text is absent. And yes, guys, I've been there. I've been there. Just do this or think about this. If you are able to proofread a text and you're not able to kind of paraphrase what the text was about after you proofread it, so is that even possible? I mean, are we feeding our students skills to write? And that is a problem, guys. That is a problem.
Teacher, can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, how are you, Teach? I do believe what you're saying is so 100% correct because um, students nowadays, what happened with them is that they focus so much in writing grammarly correct that the context of really what they want to write um, is absent. Sometimes they want to write something that is so interesting to them, but just by them having that idea that I have to write everything with the structure, all the structure, oh, is come before the noun comes after this goes after that. So the essence of what they're writing is lost because the focus is more in grammatically correct. What am I doing? If the verb be is correct, if this one is correct, if the other one is correct, that as teachers and the students focus so much on that, and teachers, we focus on so much correcting the errors, grammatic and the grammar errors, than not understanding the context of what students really want to say. So this part of what you're saying, I really like it. Even though I told you the last time I had my classes with you that you made me love grammar again because it's something that I love. But just by listening to the explanation, I really fell in love with grammar again because it's something that we don't really know how to teach it because we've been teaching grammar in the wrong way because that's the way we were taught. But it's very good that somebody can explain to us how grammar should be really taught in the classroom. So that's what I really wanted to say.
Thank you, Angelica, and I terrifically agree with you. And this we worry, or students worry a lot about, as Angelica says, structure more than meaning. But guys, do not blame students. Okay, let us not blame students because teachers uh push them through this problem of the urge of structure more than the quality of the ideas. But if we want to go beyond, we can probably not blame even teachers, but teachers were actually, let's say, compelled to do it like that. Go and teach the recursive process. Yeah, go and teach pre-writing, drafting. They don't even know what drafting is. Okay, they don't even know what pre-writing is, and when teacher says, okay, you can even include, you must include the brainstorming. Students do, God knows what that is. It's just a kind of whatever, so because they are just fulfilling the requirement, the ideas are not clear, and the problem is that we start with a recursive process, that instead of the recursive process we can start with the quality of the ideas. Mhm. Because it's when you're waiting for this fruit to be ripe before you eat it. And then after we understand the connection between you, reader, and the text and the world, is what is it that you expect your students to write? If you're expecting something, if you're expecting a structure to be, um, let's say, achieved by your students more than the ideas, then you'll never be satisfied, and then you become the killer teacher. And wow, you're so good. Es que el matador, uy, qué miedo. And probably we need to start working more in the quality, guys, in the quality of what we are requiring from our students. So let's say that another phrase that this guy, if you look for this guy on YouTube, his lectures are, oh my god, amazing. Larry McInerney, and another important opinion, or phrase or belief is, we teachers read text because we are paid to care about students. Yeah, I said it. I wrote it down. We read the text because we are paid to care about students, because we need to have our students in the classroom doing something, because if they're not really busy doing something, they can just crawl up on the walls and the ceiling, and right, and that's what we say. Es que si no los tengo ocupados, esos séptimos se me trepan al techo y... But where is the quality of the recursive writing process, especially writing, guys? I'm focusing this lecture, if you remember, in grammar and writing. And the risk of this phrase is superficial reading. Yeah, I wrote it down. How you dare is probably what you're telling yourself. And yeah, I dare. I don't care. Because I've been here, guys. I've been here many times. Okay? And the superficial reading, it's where we just focus on structure, but we don't even know what students are talking about and writing about. It might be one of the most brilliant messages in the world, but we just didn't pay attention because we were concerned about that we are paid to care about my students, but not to understand and really support the writing process. And then we miss the context. Mm-hmm. How many times have you been given a context before you write? In my case, a few times. Whenever you're concerned that you're narrating, that you're providing arguments, that you are exemplifying, right? That you are describing something. How many times? And this is one of the first steps that it's like the beginnings, guys. It's like the beginning of everything. And if we don't provide that context, and then it's hard because we want to go straight to the freaking recursive process. And that creates the problem. But that's okay. Let us jump now to some of the common questions that arise during the EFL classroom. And let's talk about the reasons behind Profe, es que no sé qué escribir. Yeah, look at the face. It's the very same phrase that whenever you're about to start this writing course or writing workshop, you see your students with the worst face that you've seen. And that's because of the cancer, guys. It's a cancer. I was there. I have infected students with that cancer. And I go straight to the recursive process before I just tell them, okay, guys, just let us start with the simplest structures or simplest things to write so that even students can gain confidence, but we don't do that. So let me know your opinion about questions like, should students be given issues to write about? Should students decide what to write about? Is written directly involved in students' writing performance? Writing paragraphs and essays and theses and compositions, is that the only way out? So let me know your perspective on the questions that we have right here. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple minutes for you to think about it. All right. Anyone who wants to share ideas or experiences?
Well, I believe that writing should be free. It's like art. You know, art is about feelings. Art is about emotions. So, um, a really good book is about a person that writes the way they feel and the experience, life experiences. So I do believe that students should have the opportunity when they want to, when it's going to be like writing practices or assignments, that they should have that mind of freedom to want to write what they want to write. And I know there is something that is we have to do because it make it easier for students, but I am so like tired, trust me. I've outlines and this and that, and I just want to write. It's like eh, I get tired of teachers telling me, okay, you have to do the outline like this, and the tests and the hook and the this. I know it is important because it makes again, we're going with structure. It gives your writing structure. So that's the reason why we have to do it. But I do believe, and that's one thing that I learned. I learned it by teaching. I learned that because my students told me that. Said, teacher, I would like to write what I feel. And the topic that you gave me, I don't know how to start. I don't know. I want to write free. So I do believe the first one that you have there, it says, should students be given the issues to write about? In my personal opinion, and this is my personal opinion, I think no, because I think they get stuck a lot in giving their own personally in the way they feel. So, in my own opinion, I think it would be no for me for number one.
Thank you, Angelica. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. Definitely. Um, if I just want to focus again on a disclaimer, guys. It's not that this is wrong and totally wrong. What is wrong is to apply this. It's like if you pretend that you learn how to walk before you learned how to crawl. And questions like these, all right, are key questions just to determine if we are actually infecting our students with this problem of they reject writing and they reject grammar because they have bad experiences with that, and they have stressful experiences and frustrating experiences. And yes, sorry, because some of you may say, yes, man, I've had that experience with you. Yeah, sorry for that. Now, before your students can be able to do this, all right, they should be able to understand what composing and just writing a couple of ideas in a piece of paper is about. Before that, it's impossible because they are just fulfilling the task. And I'm about to finish this lecture by saying that this is not the only way out. Paragraphs and essays and stuff is not the only way out. There are numerous types of tasks or activities that they don't really involve in just an essay, and then it should be very formal in a composition or a paragraph. No, if your students are not able to write a shopping list, okay, if you're not able to start writing a shopping list, if you're not able to text in English with a single message, a single text, and then you're pushing them through a recursive process, and then something's wrong. Okay. Questions 1 and 2, as Angelica exposed, is very up to you. As long as you find, or we find, harmony, guys. So we need to find this harmony between what your students are capable of doing and what students are not, and you're pushing them through, and that is just a mess. But the key, just to be done, is reading. Whenever we think about our students' success in writing before they succeed or they portray success in reading, guess what? No success. So reading definitely has more power over writing than any other skill that you may think about. And this is and I've done something for this, and I can tell you about my experience that first reading, and then small steps in writing, and later on, okay, go straight to the freaking recursive writing process, and you'll see that students may enjoy it, and then students may actually perform better. Finally, I just want to conclude by using this Chomsky's phrase that says, I think that we are forced to conclude that grammar is autonomous and independent of meaning, and the probabilistic models give no particular insight into some of the basic problems of syntactic structure. So guys, thank you so much for your attention, and I hope you find it useful.
Thank you, teacher. It was very nice to hear you again.
Yeah, teacher, I appreciate everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, teacher. Teacher.
Thank you, guys. Someone's got a hand raised. I think it's Stacy.
No, sorry. Thank you, teacher.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, Oscar, thanks very much. Now I understand why is it that you are teaching syntax courses. I think that you really enjoy, you're passionate about it, and you make it seem extremely easy, even if it is not, because I really pay attention to the dissertation, and I think that it's a very complex topic, but the way that you explain it make it seem very simple. So it's interesting. And I think that it was an outstanding presentation. And thanks for sharing your expertise with us and with this wonderful audience. Thanks for accepting the invitation and for sharing this wonderful dissertation, Mr. Conejo.
Thank you, Prof. You're very welcome.